Hello, my name is Keith Haswell. I'm a professional astrologer with 25,000 clients worldwide and 38 years experience in doing horoscopes, teaching metaphysics, astrology, meditation, reincarnation. And in this video I'm going to talk with you about the mechanics of reincarnation, how it functions, how it works. And I'm going to lift you into higher states of comprehension here that are just going to curl your hair and going to make you feel, wow, this guy is either a genius or a fruitcake, one of the two. But I'll try and make it as gentle as possible, but in order for reincarnation to make sense to you and the mechanics of reincarnation, I don't want to start off with pussyfooting around. I want to explain to you the way that it is and the way that I understand it and the way that I've proven it to be truth and fact in my own consciousness for the last 38 years. Now, the first thing to understand is that you are a consciousness. We have to all stop thinking of ourselves as a body with a brain that creates consciousness. We are a consciousness, and it's the consciousness that creates the brain and creates the body, not the other way around as science says. Now, in the previous two videos I explained to you that out-of-body experiences are quite common in written materials. And there's just so much proof there that I went into in the previous two videos about reincarnation, and I won't go into any more of that again. But look, the world is in a parlous state. The world has a problem. We all have a problem as a humanity. We are the one humanity. And that problem is not a political problem, it's not a military problem, it's not a social problem, it's not a religious problem, it's a spiritual problem. And unless we can get it all together and start correcting the direction that humanity is moving in, then we are going to find ourselves in dire straits. So it's a spiritual problem. Now, the first thing to understand about reincarnation is that you are a consciousness, and that consciousness does not rely on the body for its existence. When you dream in the astral world or the emotional world. You have the capacity to project yourself outside of your body, and many people have been able to explain how that functions and the experiences that they've had. And I travel out of my body into higher dimensions every day and have done for the last 38 years. Now, when you understand that you are a consciousness and that you are not dependent upon the body, and that the body is the result of your consciousness and a creation of your consciousness, then you can start to understand a little bit about the fact that you can exist without having to have a physical body. Now, I'm going to try and talk as little as possible about the nature of reality and our place in that reality, because it brings in quantum physics and the holographic nature of reality and so forth. And I will be covering those on later videos, and also in my intensives, online intensives, out of my book Coming Home, An Eternal Journey, I go into all of these things in great depth. So you can progress into my intensives and gradually expand your understanding to be able to integrate all of that into your consciousness. And I'm going to speak minimally on the cosmic scheme of things. But I do deem it necessary for you to understand that there is a God, there is a goddess, and they have together created all that is. Now, it's important to understand that there's not just humanity and then there's God and goddess, all that is. In between, there is a massive number of higher states of consciousness. And it's important for you to understand that you as a consciousness have a long, long history, and that you have evolved as a consciousness unit through the involutionary arc of energy down into matter, and then entered into, eventually, the mineral kingdom. And you spent millions and millions and millions of years in the mineral kingdom, and I won't tell you where that was or when it was or anything like that. You'll understand more about that as you progress through my intensives. You have progressed, though, in consciousness through the mineral kingdom and into the plant kingdom, and you've experienced all of the things that you wanted to experience in the plant kingdom, and you've mastered that level of consciousness, and then you have eventually moved into the animal kingdom, and you have experienced everything that you wanted to experience in the animal kingdom, and you've mastered that level of consciousness. And then you have moved into the human kingdom. That's the first state of self-consciousness. So you became individualized as a self-conscious being. 90,000 years ago, we started experimenting with what's called the continent of Lemuria. And I won't go into a great deal of detail about the functionality of that and how it all worked and that sort of thing. But we all have lived hundreds of lives in the Lemurian kingdom and the continent of Lemuria, and then we moved in 40,000 years ago into the continent of Atlantis, the island continent of Atlantis, and we all have lived hundreds of lives there in the continent of Atlantis. And that continental expression came to an end 3 times because they developed nuclear weapons and nuclear technology, and God and Goddess intervened. And then in the last 10,000 years, the modern civilization and culture that we experience today, and the modern world as it stands. So this is where we've come from. So it's important to understand that we have a long history. Every single one of us have a long history through hundreds of lifetimes to get where we are today. And so therefore you can choose to turn this video off and say, oh, this is just way beyond the pale and I can't integrate this into my belief patterns as they stand. Or you can say, well, I think that this guy is speaking from a position of truth, and my intuition tells me that he knows what he's talking about. And especially if you have your horoscope done by me, I'll be able to tell you lots of things about yourself, and I'll do that free of charge. I'll even tell you where you've got a scar on your body. So you are going to have to integrate this sort of teaching into your consciousness at some time, whether it's later on in this life, after you've suffered a lot more pain, or in a future lifetime. It's completely up to yourself. Okay, I'm simply presenting to you here that which I know to be truth in my own consciousness, and I won't lead you astray. Okay, so what we've got is we've got God, Goddess, all it is, and they have set laws in place that work through differing levels of self-consciousness, right the way down through into the mineral kingdom. And these differing states of consciousness are above the human level. In other words, the human level of consciousness is the first level of self-consciousness. And above that, there are an untold number of higher states of consciousness. So planetary beings, for example, they're just not blobs of matter. They're conscious beings on cosmic levels of consciousness that we can't relate to or we can't comprehend. And solar beings, do you think that all of those 100 billion stars in the Milky Way galaxy are all just blobs of matter that happen to get there by chance? Well, you'd have to be pretty naive to handle that one and let science convince you of that load of rubbish. Of course, all the solar systems are all conscious beings. Now we think, well, how can a conscious being sit at the breakfast table and eat there with all that heat? But we're trying to think in terms of consciousness that we understand and we comprehend. The physical part of the sun is only there to carry out the lower, the vitality for the lower kingdoms from the human level down. Physical reality is not a state of consciousness where these planetary beings and these solar beings and these higher beings above that have their state of consciousness and their state of being and their state of understanding, their state of life and their expression of life. So look, we are made in the image of God. We are a triplicity of physical, emotional and mental as a personality. And then we have a soul, and we are an expression of higher mind, intuition and spiritual will as a soul. And we are a triplicity as a spirit of will, love and intelligent activity. So we have all of these three parts of our soul, spirit, soul and personality, in expression here. And when we die to this physical body, we are polarized in consciousness in the astral plane, in the emotional plane. Now that I've covered that and lifted you into a higher state of consciousness, I want to now explain to you that we have 7 planes of existence in our understandable universe. There's higher levels beyond that and higher planes beyond that, but we can't understand them or comprehend them in any way, shape or form. Okay? Just as your 5-year-old child can't comprehend algebra, trigonometry and equations and so forth. Okay, so we have these 7 planes, and they are each divided into 7 subplanes. And the 7 subplanes of the physical plane are dense, liquid, gaseous, and then 4 levels of ether. I've covered these in our vehicles of expression and our field of play. And then we have 7 levels of the emotional plane, and we're working on the development and refinement of the 5 higher levels of the emotional plane that makes up our emotional body. And then we have the 4 lower subplanes of the mental plane that represent our personality and conscious mind. And so this is our personality, is 4 levels of the lower mental plane, the 5 higher levels of the astral plane, and the physical stroke etheric body. Now, what happens after death is that we are polarized in consciousness in the highest part of our etheric body, which is called, it's on the first subplane of the etheric level, and it's called the etheric permanent atom. Now that etheric permanent atom photographs through vision and through experience of the senses everything that we have experienced in that particular incarnation. Every single thing is recorded in that permanent part of our souls, that etheric permanent atom. And then immediately upon death, we then take from that all of the experience that we've just lived through in that lifetime, and we do this in a higher state of consciousness. So don't think, oh, I don't know how to do that, I'm going to fail when I die. No, we do that in a higher state of consciousness, and there's helpers. It's important to understand that you're not alone, that these higher beings of consciousness all love you, and they want to help you to become more of who you really are. And so when you pass over, there are helpers there on the inner side to say, go towards the light. and you go towards the light, and then you start to take from your permanent atom into your conscious mind all of your experiences, and that expresses itself and actuates itself as seeing your life go before you. All of the events of your life in fast time, what you might say. And then you change your polarization of your consciousness from the permanent atom in the etheric level to the permanent atom in the emotional level. And then you are polarized in the emotional body, and the physical body starts to disintegrate. Okay, so here you are now in the after-death state, and you are experiencing the emotional plane. Now, what do you experience there in the emotional plane? What you will experience in the emotional plane initially is that which you believe. It's according to your beliefs. So if you believe that you'll find yourself in heaven, then and streets paved with gold, and angels floating around on clouds playing harps, then that's exactly what you'll experience. If you believe that you'll find yourself in some place with 72 virgins, then that's exactly what you'll find and experience. If you believe that you'll be in hell and be under torment and pain and pitchforks and devils and all sorts of horrible experiences and spiders crawling up your nose and everything, that's exactly what you'll experience. But after a period of time, and there's really no time in the astral plane, in the emotional plane, there's really no time, but we have the concept of time and we have the concept of space in the emotional plane. After a period of time in the emotional plane, after death, if you imagine yourself being on a beach in Hawaii, you will automatically be there. And if you imagine yourself being with family and friends, you will automatically be there with them. And you'll be able to speak with them, but they won't be able to hear you. So you'll be able to be in the home with the family, and you'll be saying to them, "Hey, I'm not dead, I'm here. Can't you hear me?" And you can scream in their face, but they still can't hear you. Okay, so eventually your belief patterns start to lose an interest as far as what you are experiencing there, and eventually you wake up to the fact that, hey, if I think of myself as being here, I'm automatically there. If I think of myself as doing this, I'm automatically doing it. And so you eventually, with the help of your soul, higher consciousness, put the pieces of the puzzle together, and you then find yourself polarized in the what's called the mental unit. Now, in that emotional plane, though, before you do go on into those higher levels, you experience everything that you put out in the way of joy and wonder and happiness on the emotional level. Everything that you created in terms of the experience of other people, all the pain as well, and all the fear and anxiety that you produced through your actions and statements and so forth into other people, you experience that from their position. In other words, you experience it as they experienced it. And so that's why it's called the after-death state is like a hell. And so if you've created a lot of horror and pain for people in life, you'll experience a lot of that. But even then, you don't experience from the position of pain. You experience it from a position of understanding and making a connection between your actions and their pain. Then you go into the mental side of things. Your emotional body then starts to disintegrate, and you then go on into the mental side of things. Now, everything that you've learnt from the emotional side goes into your permanent atom as faculty. So in other words, you're growing and reaching and stretching even in the after-death state. You take all of that experience after death into yourself as faculty and as understanding. And then you're in the mental unit. And the mental unit is a higher level again. And that's where you experience all of the wonder and the joy and the love and the giving and the caring and the sharing and all of the wonderful things that you've done for people. You experience that from within their body, and you have a great time there for a while. What appears as a while in your consciousness doesn't take time, because that arena is outside of time and space. Now then what happens is that everything's absorbed into the mental unit as faculty and as understanding, and you've taken all the experiences of your life that you've just lived into yourself, and then your higher self says, come on, now we've got to work on what you're going to do in your next lifetime. And so then you find yourself in consciousness in the world of the soul, the higher mental plane. And you then sit down in a higher state of consciousness together with your higher self, together with your soul, and together with all sorts of helpers on the higher side of life, and together with God and Goddess. And you plan out what you are going to achieve and what you want to achieve. What did I learn in that last life that I've just lived? And how can I improve my reactions and my actions? I made a lot of mistakes in that lifetime, and so therefore I want to be able to, in my next lifetime, learn from those mistakes, and I want to correct those habit patterns. I've had plenty of addictions. I've been full of self-pity and full of martyrhood and full of shame and full of guilt and full of fear and full of domination and manipulation and control of other people. And I felt that I wasn't lovable and didn't deserve to be loved. I had all of these negativities within myself as habit patterns, and I want to try and correct them in the next lifetime. So then you sit down in this higher state of consciousness and you plan out. Do you want to be a male or a female in the next lifetime? Because you do have some lives as male, some lives as female. But in this higher mental plane with the soul and with your higher self and with helpers and so forth, you plan out what is your next life going to be. And you plan out the lessons that you want to learn in this particular arena of your life. I was very aggressive in speech in that last life, and so therefore I want to correct that. So I'll come into incarnation with certain aspects to planets relating to the third house, and I didn't really provide a good sense of security in the home environment for my family in that last life. So therefore I want to come into incarnation in my next life and experience that myself, so that I can get a feeling of what I produced. And I had problems in regard to looking after myself health-wise in that last life. I ate a lot of bad food and didn't exercise and so forth. So therefore I want to program and arrange for some sort of a crisis for myself health-wise early in life in this coming lifetime, so that I can determine, yes, I can get the message there. I can make the connection between not looking after myself, and I can appreciate good health when I've lost it and so forth. So look, we do it all with a higher state of consciousness, and we plan out which country we're going to be born into, who our parents are going to be. All they know is that they feel as if they want to have a child. And so you then come into incarnation when the planets are in the exact location to suit all the things that you want to experience in this next life. And in every single lifetime, you are refining the matter that makes up your bodies. So you are refining your etheric body and lifting the matter that makes up the fourth subplane into a higher subplane as vitality and looking after the body and exercising and eating right food. That improves the vitality of the body, and which lifts it to a higher level, a higher subplane, a vibrational frequency. And the same with the emotions. We've got the fifth subplane as the lowest one that we're dealing with, and then we've got the fourth and the third. Each one of these subplanes are more refined than the one below. So our anger and our shame and our self-pity and our aggression and domination and manipulation and control are on this fifth level, and we can refine that and bring it up to the fourth level of the fourth subplane. So we might start off in our first incarnation as a human being with 100% fifth plane energy in our emotional body. And then after 100 lifetimes we have only 70% in that level and 30% in the fourth level. And after another 100 lifetimes we've only got 20% in that fifth level, and we've got 50% in the fourth level, and we've 30% in the third level. So you get the idea. We are refining our bodies in each lifetime that we live and making them more pure, a better vehicle for the expression of the soul, for the expression of love, tenderness, kindness, forgiveness, sympathy, tolerance, patience, trust, devotion, idealism, hope, joy, wonder, magic, miracles. Okay, so each lifetime that we live, we refine the matter that makes up our vehicles. We are progressing in evolution, and we are evolving our consciousness. We are becoming more and more, as we progress in each lifetime, into the likeness of the soul. And it's an incredible experience. But you don't have to worry about, oh, I don't know how all this works. I don't think I'm going to be able to deal with it. Because the planetary being whose body of manifestation that we live in, he does understand it all. And the solar being whose body of manifestation that planet is in, he does understand. She does understand how it all functions and works. And so you've got all these laws, cosmic laws, that are put into place that handle it all on higher levels, and we don't have to worry about a thing. All we have to worry about is becoming more like the soul in each particular lifetime that we live. So it's wonderful, because as soon as you start understanding about the nature of reality and your place in that reality, and you start understanding that you are a soul in incarnation, and that you are working to refine your personality vehicles so that you can be a full expression of your soul, you step off the path of ordinary evolution onto the path of hastened evolution called initiation. And I'll cover that one in more detail in a future video. So this is about all that I wanted to talk about anyway on this particular topic, to just give you a grounding of the way that it works. And you don't have to worry and think to yourself, oh, I've been such a beast in this lifetime, I think I'll come back in the next lifetime as a dog. God will punish me. Well, God and Goddess are not punishing. There's no such thing as retribution. We are the ones who bring about this karmic retribution in order to be able to grow, for no other reason. There's no punishment involved in it all. It's our choices from higher levels about what we want to take on in that next lifetime to become more of who we really are. So all these beings of consciousness above us are all having a great time. They're not going to come back to being humans, just as you're not ever going to go back to being an animal. You've been there, you've done that, and you've mastered that level, and now you're in incarnation at the human level, the first level of self-consciousness, and now it's time to master that particular level. And as you progress in expanding your consciousness and expanding your understanding, so you become more of who you really are, and eventually you will step off the path of ordinary evolution onto the path of initiation, the path of hastened evolution. and you can start making gigantic steps forward in the evolution of your consciousness. So have your horoscope done by me if you haven't had it done already, and I'll be happy to do that for you free of charge, and to be able to help you to understand what sort of test that you've set up for yourself in this particular incarnation. And I thank you for your attentiveness here and look forward to working with you should you decide to go further into my intensives. Thank you.